Hello, Antonia.
Hello.
It's a pleasure for us to can talk with you about your different teaching techniques and other.
Thank you.
The first time I would like note where are today's challenges for professional teaching the language?
The challenges.
The challenges.
Oh, there are so many challenges that teachers have to face. I think increasingly, not least because a lot of teachers are expected to work a lot of hours, often with not very much support, so they have a lot of teaching hours. Of course, they're not paid enough money for all the work that they have to do, and all of the work that they have to do outside the classroom for preparing lessons. So that can be a challenge. But I think the main thing is that we have to manage very high expectations. So teachers, schools have high expectations of their teachers. The students themselves, live in such a busy world that they expect to make progress quickly, and that it's down to the teacher to be able to do that for them. So it can be hard for a teacher, I think, to manage those things. And to kind of juggle everything and keep everybody happy. And of course, things are changing all the time as well, so we have to try and keep up with new ideas, new methodologies, new technologies, and that can be very daunting for teachers as well when they've already got a lot on their plate.
Mm-hmm. Why is creativity important for language learning?
Creativity. For me, creativity is kind of fundamentally important. As humans, we're naturally very creative. We're curious beings. We want to find out about things, and we don't learn things just for the sake of learning. We learn things in order to be able to do something with that knowledge. So when a child, for example, is learning a language, they don't just learn the bits of language that's been repeated to them. They do something with that, and they start to create their own meaning and come up with new utterances. So creativity is very important in language learning, I think, as well, because when you have creative learning in the classroom and you're a creative teacher, you really try and connect with your learners. You try and engage them emotionally, psychologically, and you work with that. And great learning comes from that kind of human connection of people in a room, working in a room together and doing creative, exciting things. So I think that's very important.
Yes, it's really important for the teacher and for the learners.
Yeah.
How can teacher be more creative in the classroom?
Yeah, it's quite a difficult one. I think one of the things I was talking about is the struggle that we have with time and with, as I say, all those expectations of material that we need to get through, or focusing on exams. So there are a few things that teachers can do. Sometimes it can just be about kind of making a little twist to an activity, just personalizing it a little bit more, even a simple grammar activity. If at the end of it, you ask your students to kind of make sentences that are really relevant to them, and you have a genuine discussion about that, that will already make that learning more memorable. So it's not always about making a big change, a whole lesson on art or poetry. It can be just little things. And the other thing to remember is, I think, as teachers, you don't have to kind of do it all at once. So if you want to be more creative, it's about kind of stepping slightly out of pushing your own boundaries and trying to do things a little bit differently. And you can just try one or two activities and see how they work. They might not work for you or in your teaching context, and that's fine. But if you're constantly kind of looking to improve and looking for ways to kind of be the best teacher you can be, then I think you're naturally being creative as a teacher.
Mm-hmm. In your conference, you are talking about different advice to be a creative teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I think these sentences we can apply to our life.
Yeah.
With independence, we are teacher or not. But I think there are a lot of people, lot of teachers that think they are not creative teacher.
Absolutely.
Yes, sometimes it's real.
I think that's true, and I think a lot of people say, oh, you know, I'm really not creative, you know, I can't draw and I can't sing. And, you know, it's funny because I don't really believe that. I think we are all creative, but in different ways. So it may be that drawing is not your thing, that's fine, but maybe you're good at something else. It's still creative. Maybe you cook amazing meals, or you do other things that are creative. But I think what happens with creativity is that people, they're quite scared of it. So it's really an issue of confidence. You think that you're not good at something, and so you don't do it, and that's a safe place to be. But actually, more creative people tend to just be the people that do it anyway, and they don't worry about, you know, you have to sometimes just block out that inner critic, the person that tells yourself that you're no good at this, and just do it anyway and see what happens. And a lot of the time, you really surprise yourself. And that's what I mean about kind of pushing your boundaries. So yes, obviously we all have different kind of strengths and weaknesses, but I think we're all creative and we can all work kind of within that frame and find ways of doing things slightly differently.
Mm-hmm. You are talking about the time. The time probably is the problem of this century for the
For
people
everyone.
in general. But for me it's very important some question you are talking about. For example, free time for us. For example, free time for mind, for our mind. Or for example, to be more engaged with the learner.
Okay.
I think really there are important things for all general, for the people, but it's especially important for the teacher, the time. Perhaps is, I don't know if you are agree with me about the concept of the teacher like an humanist.
Yes, very much so. I think time really is the problem. You're very right about that. Mm-hmm. And I think what we have to remember is that time spent sitting and really listening to someone or having a really genuine conversation is so valuable that we really have to be careful not to waste time, I guess, in the classroom, or at least to manage our time carefully so that we don't, it's really easy to fill up your life with things that you have to do and realize that you're not focusing on the things that are actually really important for you. And I think it's the same in the class. You know, you can very quickly fill up your lesson with all of these things that you need to get through, but perhaps lose the focus of the real kind of deeper learning, the more human learning on a more human level. So I do think as teachers we need to make that time, and perhaps sometimes shorten other activities so that we have time in the class to sit and really kind of consolidate, to ask people for their opinions and be genuinely interested in what they've got to say rather than quickly moving on to the next thing, because that is so valuable for us. So yes, it can easily get kind of shoved to one side, but I think we just have to be careful not to do that.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you agree with me about the problem of the learner, about your own forma de pensar, your opinion about
way of thinking.
Yes, about the life and the different question. For me, there are today a problem with the learning is they can't have opinion about the things in general.
Okay.
Perhaps I don't know if the teacher had the perhaps obligatory
yes, obligation
to change in the learning is more free to have our opinion and open your mind, open your eyes.
I absolutely think we do have that obligation. That's what education is about, right? So I think there is an issue, it's talked about a lot in kind of the media, that particularly younger people, they have a short attention span, they can't really focus on things, and I think there's a tendency to deal with things at a very superficial level, you know, short tweets and headlines, and that people rarely kind of get involved in the deeper thinking, into going into something in a bit more detail. Perhaps we don't have time. So as educators, yes, I think really kind of encouraging our learners to think critically about things, to think kind of beyond what's just in front of them, beyond what's on the page, and get them really thinking about the kind of the real significance of things, and also you know, helping them to develop as thinkers, but also as speakers, being able to express their ideas and giving them the opportunity to do that. I think oracy, you know, that the teaching of oracy, particularly for children, is so important nowadays, because they spend so much time on phones and chatting. A lot of them are kind of forgetting about how to have a proper conversation and how to discuss things. So I think, yes, as parents it's important that we do that, but also as teachers, that we give students a voice and a way of expressing their ideas, and that's something that that I think's, you know, key to focus on. And give them different ways of doing it as well. It may be through a conversation or giving a presentation. It may be through getting them to put together a video of their own images, and maybe you know, record a voiceover. But it's giving them a chance to really express themselves. And I think kids, particularly teenagers, they love that kind of thing. Once they're given the opportunity, it's much more engaging for them than just completing a grammar gap fill.
Yes. In this context, what do you think about the value of the new technologies in teaching, in language teaching, or in general teaching?
I think there's a huge value to new technologies. I think we need to be careful, obviously, that we're not just playing around with technology for the sake of it. But I think when there's a clear language aim or a clear learning aim for our learners, for example, if we're getting them to express their ideas, as I was saying, through making a video, they're learning digital skills as well when they put those things together. So for me it holds great value, because it's a fantastic way to engage learners. A lot of them find it really motivating. You know, they are so technologically focused, especially young people, that it is a good way to connect with them, to get them to then connect with each other, perhaps with other speakers of English. You know, you can connect classes up nowadays with Skype and have students talking from one country to another. That's a fantastic thing, a fantastic tool, you know, an amazing thing for us to be able to do. And I think learners can really, they can get a lot from that kind of thing. So we need to be able to keep up to date and use the technology carefully, you know, with clear kind of pedagogy behind it, but it's worthwhile, I think.
Okay, and what's about the video you're using the language teaching?
Yeah, I mean, I've always used a lot of video in my teaching. I love the way that video, it's very visual, obviously, it engages people, it motivates them. It's very efficient because video can entertain you and inform and, you know, motivate you, all in just kind of 2 or 3 minutes. So you can work with a very short piece of video and then make a whole lesson out of that, which I think then becomes a kind of memorable and worthwhile lesson for the learners. They enjoy it, they learn a lot from it, and they're motivated to kind of want to keep learning that way. So for me, it works really well. A lot of teachers seem to agree. So I think it's a very powerful learning tool. In fact, I think in many ways, there's still so much more that we need to learn. We're using video in some ways, but I think there's a lot more that we could do, and certainly in terms of getting students to make their own videos. I think that's something that we're only just beginning.
Yes, and
to do.
Even the contact with the image in fields or another kind of videos after the classroom, no? In your house, it's a very powerful
Exactly, and it's a great way to kind of have learners, you know, doing things outside the classroom that's still involved with their learning, and that's the big thing that's really changing. I think traditionally homework was always just, you know, doing kind of black and white paper, you know, quite traditional activities, but nowadays you can get students to do research or start, you know, putting their ideas together for a video, or playing on a vocabulary app, or doing some listening on, you know, some lyrics training with a YouTube video. There are so many other things that they could be doing that, yes, relate to their language and their learning, but involve technology, and they can do those outside the classroom. So again, when we go back to that issue of time, that's really useful because you've freed up time in a sense, because they can do things outside, and that's really how they're going to learn, you know. Just doing a couple of classes of language classes a week, it's going to be quite hard to learn a language. Learning a language takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of input, you know, of listening and reading, and waiting for that language to kind of sink in. So if you can get your learners doing things outside class and motivating them to be involved with English, just even maybe one little thing each day that's in English, the more they do that as they, you know, grow older, the better their English is going to be.
Yes. The last question for us. I would like to know your opinion about the handicap, the future wave of the teaching of the teachers and of the learning.
It's the future of teaching and learning. Yeah, I think we have to be very careful when we predict the future. I think election results tell us that we're not very good at it. You know, we don't really know. We don't know what's going to happen, you know, in 10 years' time in education. And in many ways, I think perhaps we shouldn't worry about it too much. I think it's more important to focus on what's going on now. And that's making sure that we're kind of up to date with what's happening now in our classrooms and with our learners. And if we're working with that and we take it kind of day by day and stay with it, you know, it's kind of about keeping up all the time, not making huge kind of wild predictions about what might happen, what might not happen. We won't have schools in the future, we won't have teachers, we won't have books. I don't really believe in any of that. I think things change, they do. And as teachers, it's part of our duty to kind of move with the times, move with the changes, but not make kind of rash predictions that probably won't come true.
Step by step.
Take it day by day, step by step.
Okay. Another more things that you would like to tell us?
No, not really. It's been wonderful to be here. I'm really looking forward to hearing some of the other speakers and what they have to say about things. The reception during the plenary was great. So a lot of teachers seemed really happy and were telling me how they really enjoyed the creativity element, and that's something that they really like to work with their learners. So yeah, it should be a really good day. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.